Are you considering having an aesthetic procedure performed? Confused by all the information out there? Welcome to It's a Young Thing, where Nurse Paula Young arms you with the knowledge on all things cosmetic and aesthetic. And now, Nurse Paula Young.
Hello, everyone. This is Nurse Paula. Thanks so much for coming back again this week to listen to another episode of It's a Young Thing. And we do talk about an awful lot of aesthetic procedures on It's a Young Thing, and people often wonder, do you ever run out of things to say? And it's like, in our industry, you never really run out of things to say, because there's always something new coming out. There's always new technologies coming out. There's new procedures coming out. There's new products coming out, or there's a new way to use a product. So I'm going back on the topic of fat, because it's really fat and wrinkles are the two major things that, all medical spas and plastic surgery and dermatology offices pretty much treat. And fat is where it's at. There's just so many different ways to treat fat. You get fat in different parts of your body, and you like to be able to offer some options to people. So one of the things that, if you listen to some previous episodes that we did one on with Dr. Young on Tell Me About Smart Lipo, and I also did one on cool sculpting for fat reduction. We have yet another treatment for fat reduction at Young Medical Spa, and we've just added this within the last few months. It's called SculpSure, and SculpSure, I'm sure you've heard about it. It's all over the news. When new things come out in the industry, the companies that manufacture them are really smart, and what they do is they really target patient marketing. They market to the consumer, and they put it in magazines, and they put it on TV shows, and it ends up on shows like The Doctors, and it ends up on, social media everywhere. So mass marketing to the consumers is one of the things that really does drive a new product or a new procedure. And SculpSure is newer to the non-invasive form of fat reduction. And, what it is it just gives us as medical providers more ways to help people reduce these pockets of fat that have plagued them sometimes for their entire lives. And we're not talking about people that are extremely obese, because those individuals have a medical condition that does need to be treated by a physician to make sure that they are healthy and then they lose weight healthy. What I'm talking about is reducing pockets of fat either by minimally invasive or non-invasive ways. So SculpSure is one of the newer methods on the market, and I'm recording this episode in March of 2017, and it is made for pockets of fat. Now, if you go back and listen to the Smart Lipo podcast and the Cool Sculpting podcast, before you make your decision to have your love handles reduced or your abdomen reduce, some pockets of fat in your abdomen, I would really recommend going back and listening to those two episodes. They're available on iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud. They're on our website at youngmedicalspa.com. We've got a podcast page there, and I would go back and listen to those modalities, because it really does help you understand what the differences are between these fat reduction techniques. So today, we're going to talk about SculpSure by Cynosure. And SculpSure uses heat. Like we're in cool sculpting. We talked about cool sculpting reducing fat. Cool sculpting uses cold, because fat freezes before the skin does. It freezes the fat cells, and then we can rupture them, and then your body gets rid of the contents. Well, SculpSure works kind of like under the same principles, but instead of using cold, it uses heat, and it's actually a light source that heats up, a laser light source. With all non-invasive techniques, proper patient selection is an absolute must. You really do have to fit the criteria for a non-invasive fat reduction procedure. And people will say, well, why do you offer so many? Well, it's because it's non-invasive. Sometimes what might work for one person is not going to work for another person. So where cold might not work for one person, the heat may work for someone else, and vice versa. Some people have failed on cool sculpting and SculpSure worked for them, and some people failed on SculpSure, and Cool Sculpting worked for them. So you really don't know with these non-invasive procedures. And sometimes people get really upset when it doesn't work, but just sometimes people's bodies don't work that well with these non-invasive techniques. So we're specifically talking about SculpSure and what makes it different than Cool Sculpting or Smart Lipo. Well, first of all, it's way different from Smart Lipo because it's a non-invasive procedure. And Smart Lipo is minimally invasive. It goes under the skin. It's a wake-tumescent liposuction. But with SculpSure, it's a light-based body contouring, and it's laser energy. And there's really no damage to the surrounding tissue. So you go into your provider and you get your consultation to determine the areas that you want to reduce. So let's say you want to do your abdomen. Well, an abdomen is a very funny thing. I mean, it could just be a small pooch underneath your belly button. It could be all the way around the belly button. It could be like kind of where your six packs are hidden way below, and you want that whole six-pack kind of area done, or even off on the sides to where your love handles are. So there's these little frames that fit over your skin, and the provider, what they'll do is they will put these frames together and section out the areas that want to be treated, and they all attach to a strap. And that strap gets tightened down. And as it gets tightened down, your skin pushes through these little windows of these frames like little pillows. And those are the areas that are going to be treated. So then what the provider does is they take the SculpSure applicators and they snap them into these frames over the little pillows of tissue that's protruding up through, and they activate the machine. Now it really does depend on, like I said, where you're treating. The different types of body fat are treated differently, different people are treated differently, but typically you can expect the treatment to last 25 minutes. That's the standard time for a single treatment. And doesn't mean doesn't say how many applicators. You could have 2 applicators. You could have 4 applicators. It doesn't say how many applicators. It's just the time that those applicators are on your body. And there's no damage to the surrounding tissue. It's targeting the fat that's underneath the tissue, and it's basically bursting those fat cells. Now, all the contents of those fat cells come out. It's a non-invasive procedure. So just like we talked about VeloShape and just like we talked about Cool Sculpting, now you've got all of this fat that's kind of in the interstitial space, which means between the cells, and you got to get rid of it. And now it's up to you. So how you get rid of all this fat is by drinking plenty of water, about 2 liters a day. We usually say some exercise, maybe some moderate walking, even 20 minutes a day, a couple times a week, staying hydrated, all that. And also taking maybe a vitamin that has niacin and a multivitamin that has niacin in it, because niacin's a flushing, vasodilating type of vitamin that helps your body, dilates the vessel so you can get all that stuff out of your tissue quicker. And so your body can process it and eliminate it. Now, if your primary care physician permits you to have niacin, depends upon your health condition. So you have to get clearance to that. But now you have to get rid of it. So it takes time. Now, during the treatment, I've asked people how they felt. They said basically they feel a little bit of a tingling sensation, sometimes maybe a little pinching, but they kind of get over that. It's tolerable. The treatment's over in 25 minutes and then you're done. So there's no recovery. There's no downtime. You just go about your business. There's no garments to wear afterwards. It only targets the fat cells. So nerves and blood vessels and skin are not affected by SculpSure. And, the applicator head is basically just snapped into those frames, and it's sitting on the top of your skin. So it's not sucking your tissue into the head. It's just sitting on top and treating the tissue that's coming up through that little frame. And so the heat from the laser, it spreads out beyond the applicator head, and it allows for, they say, better blending between the treated and non-treated areas. So kind of like goes underneath where the frame is, out into the areas that's under the frame and not actually in the treatment head. And it actually can get into that area and penetrate into those fat cells as well. Now, you're going to see your optimal results at about 2 to 3 months, because You might have a little swelling afterwards because this area is treated and all this stuff is now like in your cells and your body has to get rid of it. So what happens is the white blood cells come in, we call them the macrophages, and they come in and they gobble all this up and they have to carry it away for your body to eliminate naturally. Well, sometimes that causes a little bit of swelling because it is kind of like a controlled or an induced inflammation. We want that to happen. We want these cells to come in and we want the cells to carry all this byproduct away for your body to excrete it. So you pretty much want to say, don't look for any great results until about 2 to 3 months out after. Now, how many treatments do you need? This is pretty much going to depend upon your results. Do you like how you look after one treatment? Say you had 4 applicators on your abdomen. Are you getting the definition and the fat reduction that you really want? Or are you going to need a second treatment or maybe even a third? So this is what you need to find out when you go in for your consultation. The providers that do the consultations for all of these types of procedures can really pinpoint pretty closely about how many applicators they think you're going to need and how many treatments. And you have to wait these couple of months, between the treatments so you can visibly see the results. You don't want to treat an area that you haven't even gotten rid of the fat yet. Your body's still eliminating it. So you really want to give it time between sessions, between session 1 or session 2. So you may be in there like 2 to 3 times to get the fat reduction that you want. Overall, there's about a 24 to 25%, average reduction between each treatment of really stubborn fat. And that's kind of like thicker fat. That's like in your love handle in your waist area. But there's over a 90% satisfaction rate with SculpSure. And I know that our patients really are enjoying the results that they're getting. So if you have time, you have patience, and this is something that you really want to do, you can repeat your treatment plan and, every 6 weeks or so. There's multiple opportunities. This is why I like to tell people, if you're going in for a procedure, something like this, for any kind of fat reduction, you really want to seek out, no matter where you are, you really want to seek out a provider that offers more than one option for reducing fat. Because you may not want a minimally invasive procedure, and you may not want a non-invasive procedure, and there is a difference in price points between one modality and another. So, that's all I have to tell you today about SculpSure. It fits in really nicely with our practice because there are some people that have heard so much about it and they really feel that they're going to respond well to it, and we're really getting great results with it. But what I really enjoy that we have a variety of options to offer people for fat reduction. So that's all about SculpSure this week on It's a Young Thing. Please check it out and look at the other modalities of fat reduction as well before you make your decision. There's a lot of practices that offer, more than one, so make sure you do check them out. Thank you all for joining me, and we'll talk to you all next time. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast. There's a whole lot of episodes on a lot of other topics. And like I said before, we're on iTunes and SoundCloud. We're on iHeartRadio. And if you really want to check out who we are and everything about our medical spa and all the other podcast episodes that we have, you can go to our website at youngmedicalspa.com.
You've been listening to It's a Young Thing with Nurse Paula Young. If we didn't discuss a topic you're interested in today, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes so when we do, you don't miss it. The cosmetic aesthetic world can be confusing. We're here to arm you with quality, truthful information from our many years of experience. For even more info, youngmedicalspa.com.
This has been a Steve Mittinen social media creation. Steve Mittinen, socialmedia.com.
The creators, producers, participants, and distributors of this podcast disclaim any liability in connection with the material expressed herein. This information should not be substituted for individual medical counseling. Information on this podcast is not intended to diagnose or prescribe treatment for any condition. It is intended for educational purposes only, based on the research and experience of Young Medical Spa. Discussion of specific treatments is done only in an office visit directly with the patient. Contact our office to schedule.